today's position groups, well, they're happily married in football matrimony. They're the defensive line and the linebackers.
We call them the front seven.
Yes.
Though in this defense, the front six.
It'd be the front six, technically, because you're running 5 DBs out there.
Indeed, indeed, indeed.
I went first yesterday.
All right, I'll go first. Let's start with the defensive line because this is the one that I felt stronger about. And this is a little bit of a callback to yesterday. We talked about interceptions, right, with the defensive backfield. Even though linebackers, defensive linemen, they can have picks too. But they're the impetus behind it, right? So I'll use that to say the defensive line be the impetus behind the number that they have thrown out this offseason. 4-0. 40 sacks. They are going to play 13 games this year. That is 3-point-something sacks per game. Last year, we've done this a million times this offseason, so I will not belabor it. But 2 games last year, they had 8 sacks apiece. That's 16. In the other 10, they had a total of 16. They had 3 games last year with 1 sack. They had 2 games last year with 0 sacks. They had 5 games total where they had 3 sacks in 5 games. They had another 2 games where they had 16 sacks. Raise up the floor. I don't think the ceiling can go any higher. 8 is a ton, but raise up the floor. 40, in my opinion, is very, very doable. So be the impetus behind 40 sacks. And the other one, this is more of a, if you see it, you define it, those types of situations. Can there be like this real nice breakthrough that we say, that's the guy for the future? Because this is, while there's a lot of young dudes in that room, I think the main reason for optimism with the defensive line is because of the veterans on the roster in the defensive line. Can one of those young players step up to the point where it's like, oh, you're going to have to deal with him again in 2025? So 40 sacks, though, that's the number that I wanted to start off with for sure. You get to that number, and that is a successful year, and I think that they can do it.
I'm kind of combining everybody together, but I will get very specific when it comes to the D-line in just a moment.
Okay.
But here's just some numbers. And, of course, in football, there's the havoc rate. And havoc rate is factoring in the percentage of plays that you're either tackle for loss, a pass breakup, forcing a fumble, or gaining an interception.
Okay.
I'm calling just this chaos. Right here in the last 5 seasons, Nebraska's tackles for loss, its forced fumbles, and its quarterback hurries. Okay. And last year was high water marks over, and these are the last 5 full seasons. So 2020, we're kicking it to the curb.
Okay.
High water marks in tackles for loss, 76. High water mark for quarterback hurries, tied with 2018 with 34. But look at the forced fumbles. Only 9 forced fumbles.
Yeah, right,
that was
in the middle.
coming off a year where they only had 5 forced fumbles. So I looked this up.
So they did almost double the number.
I looked this up. In terms of forced fumbles, your national leaders were like in the mid-teens. So really 9 isn't that far off.
Wow, so 15 and 12 and 18 and 19 were really good numbers. Then.
So one thing I'm looking for, double-digit forced fumbles.
I like that.
Double-digit forced fumbles. Also, on tackles for loss, get to the top 25. Top 25 in tackles for loss. Last year, let's look up tackles for loss. Last year, a top 25 team in tackles for loss would have had 85.
Top 25?
Top 25.
Okay.
And, of course, they're playing more games. Most of those teams played at least 13 games. But I think Nebraska will play 13 games, spoiler alert. So get to 85. And in terms of quarterback hurries, can you average 3 or more quarterback hurries per game? And the reason I picked 3 is if you look back at Michigan last year, the team that cheated.
That won the national championship.
They had 47 quarterback hurries in 15 games. It's basically 3
a game.
Also, individually, could somebody get to 8 sacks?
Because it hasn't happened around here, right?
It has happened one time in the last decade. Khalil Davis had 8 sacks in 2019.
Wow. So since Randy Gregory's awesome 2013.
Where he didn't even get to double digits. He had
Yeah.
9.5.
Yeah.
But Khalil Davis is the only Husker in the last decade to get to 8 sacks? Can someone get to 8 sacks? And at that spot, I'm kind of looking at the jack. It gave him the jack position. That's Mr. Sherman. That's Mr. Uman Mielian. They only combined for 2.5 sacks last year.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see one of those two guys maybe be that.
That would fit in with what I said, too, kind of having that breakthrough year where you're like, hell yeah, 2025.
And then finally, and I just tweeted this out a little bit ago, and I'm going to talk about this more with Sip when he joins us next.
Okay.
Nebraska needs to get somebody on the first team all-conference.
Oh, boy. You think that's realistic?
I think between either Nash or Ty, I think one of them can get on the all-conference first team.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing.
Nebraska has had a dearth of and this is just all
dearth. Just means lack.
No, I'm not just looking at offense,
like
defense, and special teams. Nebraska has very sorely lacked anybody being mentioned for all conference teams.
Yes,
no less first team.
Well, that goes. I mean, we keep using the word game breaker and playmaker on the defensive side of the ball. If you're a first teamer, you are a playmaker. You are a
somebody
game breaker
on the first team.
I like that. Can the linebackers be memorable this year? And Prince Will is the person that I wrote down. So,
yeah.
Okay. Perfect.